Milan. Okay, so first things first. I've got my transfer paper, which is basically a graphite paper. Underneath of this is the copy that I've been trying to get for 5 days. Found out they fired the guys that knew what the hell they were doing. So I had to get one of the guys that had to learn what he was doing on the Cthulhu copies to be able to get this going. So I learned my lesson, and that is that I can't do a wet drawing to be a good drawing if I want to make a copy of it. All right. So, panel, which is described in the description box. Actually, everything is described in the description box except for the cheap brushes that I bought because I knew that the masking fluid was going to ruin it. But I want to use the masking fluid to see if I can get a smoother background before I start working on foreground stuff. Also, as I expect that this is not going to be quick. This is a regular ballpoint pen, just looks different, but it's just the same thing. All I'm using it for is to apply a more precise pressure on the graphite paper. It doesn't have to write, it just has to have a point. However, if it does write, it makes it easier to see what you've done, where you've been. If it doesn't write, it's best to start in places that have kind of roadmap markings for your milestones or whatever. That's not the word I'm looking for, but like I started in the corner of this thigh and knee, so I knew that I could go down to the head, and then I started from this line, so that this is, that line's done. Now I'll do the same thing here. And there was Eli filling up something with water, in case anybody was wondering. So how was, did you hear anything back from the store that was accepted, that publisher got sick or the editor got sick or something? You know what I'm
Nope.
talking about?
Yeah, haven't heard anything back from him.
Well, that sucks.
And I'm not real thrilled.
How long are you going to hold it before you submit somewhere else?
Well, let me check something. Let me see if I can find it. If I remember correctly, and that thing I shared with you on Slack. I think I shared it. Maybe you shared it. I don't remember. Somebody shared it. One of the markets, and I kind of thought, I shared it. Yeah, I figure I'll wait for October to roll around because that's a year. I'll email them again, be like, I don't know how else to put it. Like, I don't want to sound like a jerk, but
well, yeah, I mean,
you
waiting a year on an answer, that's not being a jerk. That's pretty patient, especially nowadays.
Just be like, hey, I got to shop this around if you guys aren't buying it. Like, I'm not hearing anything from you, and yeah, it's been a year, and you haven't returned any emails. Like, if you want it, cool, but I'm shopping it. You know?
Are they?
Or I suppose I could just shop it and be like, screw them. If they come back with something before someone else bites, fine. But if they
I think you're doing the right thing, actually. I think by trying to tell them, hey, I'm trying to give you a chance to have this because you're the first one that accepted it. I think that is the right way to go about it.
Okay.
You can be professional even if they can.
Yeah, I guess. Like I tell my kids and my students all the time, it's like I have a tendency to want to say things. I think most people do. Just because it feels good to say it, even if you shouldn't necessarily say it.
Yeah, right.
And normally ends up worse for you. So, like, I'm wary of, like I said, I'm wary of sounding like an absolute jerk. But, yeah, a year, I think a year is enough time to say,
Well, I think if you're putting it that way, like, it's been a year and I haven't heard back from you.
Yeah.
If I don't hear back from you within a week, I'm going to shop it elsewhere because I don't figure that you're either going to take it for whatever reason,
Right.
I think that's perfectly acceptable to give them a heads up. Hey, you got about a week before I'm going to shop it someplace else. They can't say anything bad about your behavior if you do that. You were really, really patient. You're patient, more patient than I am.
I just don't understand. Like, my goodness, like I don't care how many submissions they have. Once it's been accepted, which they emailed me and it's on their Moke show or whatever,
right?
Like okay. So at that point, you've read it, you've said you like it. Okay, send me a contract. And they keep, on their website, it talks about, they've had health issues. Okay, cool, I get it, but it's been a year. Like, either, you've succumbed to your health issues, or you're just not in the business of publishing, or at least you're not in the business of publishing.
Right, and the whole publishing organization can't have succumbed to health issues.
Yeah. I know.
Unless it was the plague or something.
Yeah. It's the fun of of this end of the writer market relationship.
Yeah, this end of being a writer. That's kind of why I actually asked about it, is because I don't know how many people are going to view and want to discuss it, but you know,
Right.
they should know that it's not just a process where you write something, send it in, and bang, it's bought. Now, I've had that happen a couple of times, but not very many, and all of them been from the same person, the same editor. Now, if you develop a relationship with an editor, then they might be more apt to just accept your stuff or give it a read over someone else's that they haven't read.
Right. I get that.
No, I'm not. I'm really not saying anything to you as much as I'm saying it to anyone that might
be listening or watching later.
Yeah, right. The fact that don't get disheartened because the only time that you're going to ever have editors that just push yours to the front is if they know you and they've seen your work.
Yeah, pretty much.
This is not, and especially nowadays, like everybody wants to be one. Like everyone that reads wants to be a writer. I don't know of anyone that reads, that really reads, that just reads, and that's it. They're like, oh man, I'm just happy reading. They all want to try their hand at it, you know.
Yeah.
Some of them learn very quickly that it's not for them because it's not not a business for the weak-willed. If you can't handle a lot of rejection, and it's depressing for everybody, even those that do handle the rejection. But if you can't handle the rejection, this is not something that you want to get into. Right? Or just me?
No, that makes sense. I thought it was interesting when Orson Scott Card said he was depressed, where he suffers from depression.
Yeah. I think that I think there are other circumstances for Orson Scott Card. I saw somebody last night. I was looking up. What was it? It was a certain type of book. I'm trying to think, and it's not working again. So I was actually surprised that it took me to Orson Scott Card as part of the list of the type of book that I was looking for, but that's beside the point. The main point was, I think it was thriller writers, and they had him listed with a thriller writer, and I really don't see him as a thriller writer, you know.
Yeah.
But they had Orson Scott Card Ender's Game listed as one of the better thrillers, and it explicitly says in the first paragraph. This was before I realized that Orson Scott Card was a right-wing nut job. I'm like, what? Orson Scott Card being a right-wing nut job would basically say that everyone that's not communist, outright communist, is a right-wing nut job. Orson Scott Card is about as left wing as you can get, except for the fact that he didn't approve of the term marriage between same sex. That's it. Everything else he pretty much espouses. So it's like, huh? I really wanted to reply. I wanted to say something like, "You're an idiot. You don't know what right wing is." I mean, but you know, it's a futile argument because it doesn't matter if they know.
No.
They don't care. Orson Scott Card made the mistake of not being in lockstep with them for one thing.
I know.
And they canceled him. And he's a Mormon, so why is it unacceptable for him to believe that, in truth, religion has nothing to do with politics?
Yeah, but did you see the comments that Jake put on my story?
I think so.
So
you're talking about the Event Horizon comment?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I can see how he sees that. You've seen him at Event Horizon, I assume.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter how he sees it. That doesn't matter. If
no,
he sees it, he sees it.
Have you seen Event Horizon?
I have. I saw it when it came out.
Okay, no, I just wanted to know if you had, because like I had a different version of it than Jake did. The movie.
Huh.
Like I didn't see it being hell. I saw it being a sort of time loop, but I didn't see it being hell necessarily. Of course, memories are flawed, and I could be misremembering. You know what I mean?
Right. I don't know. It's bothering me today. It didn't bother me. It didn't bother me, and then now it bothers me. Not that Jake said anything wrong, because like I'm not, especially in case he's watching. Yeah, like the feedback. I gotta have the feedback. Don't get me wrong. But it just.
Well, so it's written in space. You're gonna have one or two reactions if it's not like a. It's not like a what the hell they call it? Like Star Wars or
space opera.
Yeah, space opera is another one too that's closely related.
Or the military sci-fi.
No, it's in the range of it not necessarily being hard sci-fi, like not necessarily being a believable science. It's being more alien. More alien technology than science technology.
Okay.
If you're not writing in that vein, you're going to have connotations. You're going to have relationships to Star Trek because Star Trek has had like 5 different spin-offs and all of them are heading in those directions. Anything speculative that has been covered at one point in time, whether ridiculous or not, and the movies that are bigger box office movies that aren't big alien invasions or something like that, they're going to cover those kind of aspects too. So I don't think you're going to help but be able to have some association. I guess what I'm telling you is you don't worry overly about it because unless you're intending to do it, like they go through that teleporter and then they end up on their own ship before, just as everybody's dead or whatever. Unless you're intending to do the exact same thing as that.
No, I'm not.
Then I wouldn't worry about it at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess I'm trying to be comforting. I don't know if that's working.
Well, no,
it is.
To
be supportive,
and you are. No, it's just like if I was going to have to sit, the high concept, where it's this meets this, whatever. It's
along line.
Kinda, Um, I think it would be more like, I guess, sort of, Event Horizon meets Freaky Friday.
Freaky
Or
Friday?
Parent Trap.
Oh, wow, that's
Freaky Friday. Freaky Friday. That's what it was. Freaky Friday. I was right the first time.
You know who wrote Freaky Friday?
Freaky Friday is, it's a body swap.
Do you know who wrote it?
Oh, do I know who wrote it? No.
Elmore Leonard.
I would never, ever have thought that.
I think you'll find that he wrote it as Freaky Friday, right?
That's the body swap one, right? I'm not crazy.
It's the Jamie Lee Curtis one. Is it Jamie Lee Curtis? I could be wrong because I didn't see the movie, but I just know that it's based on Elmore Leonard's story.
Yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis, Lindsay Lohan, 2003. Yeah, I never watched the movie either, but I knew what it was.
Was it Freaky Deaky that was the story version?
Well, this is saying that it's based on a book by Mary Rogers.
No, it's Freaky Deaky.
Ah.
Yep, I confused it.
It happens. It's like I tell my students, once you know as much as I do, some of it's going to get messed up.
It's bound to be like a gumball machine when you try to get something out.
Yeah. It's a crane machine. That's my memory.
Predict the
Goes
color.
down.
What's that?
It's the crane machine. That's my memory. You know, it goes in trying to grab something.
I was saying the gumball machine, the gumball machine with the spiral, same thing.
Yeah.
You know you're going to get a piece of gum, but, you know.
It's the right flavor to it.
Probably the same flavor, but just different color.
That red tastes different. Beautiful flavor of red. That just made me think. Like, oh my god, like some of the freezer pops and stuff that people get. Some of those basically all just taste like sugar. If you don't believe in synesthesia, and how is it? You know what the flavor of bread is? Just stuff like that. I just
Right.
made me laugh. Oh. Well, I feel better about the story now. Thanks, Rich.
Well, I'm glad you feel better about it. Because I really don't, I mean, I really wouldn't want to say something that makes you feel like giving up or whatever, but I'm pretty sure, like, we do that, we all do that, because we all read so widely and watch movies in the vein of what we're writing, that we're going to like something and kind of adopt it. We were talking about that before. You're going to steal from the best, right? So,
Right. I just have a feeling, I think I might just, on Friday, I might just tell my family that, leave me alone, I'm finishing this. Don't talk to me, don't, like, just hoard some food next to my desk and be like, that's it, this one's getting done today. And then watch it not get done. But still, I would try.
yeah, I'm more convinced now than ever about my opinions on Res of the Future.
Oh. I'm beginning to come to the feel. I mean, I've kind of been feeling this for a while, but spend so much time worrying about a short story every quarter that I'm like not working on a novel. And,
right. And go ahead.
I'm not ever going to make money on short stories.
Yeah, there's not the only people I know of that read short stories and are people that write short stories.
Yeah.
Like, really, these days people don't want to read short stories. They don't buy those collections. The ones that do buy those collections, they're like buying Stephen King.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's one of those things that I noticed. Like I was going to say about writing in the future, that I don't think I'm going to ever write to that market. Like, that was kind of the idea in the beginning of Writers in the Future, right? You were writing as part of this contest that was a big contest that if you won it, there was a bit of prestige to it. And then you got taught by people that are industry professionals, right?
Right.
And you could claim that you won this or whatever. Like, so when I first got into disagreement with a certain writing instructor, it was over presenting the statistics of the people that weren't rejected outright from Writers in the Future. So they keep it very tight how many people actually enter the Writers in the Future for each quarter, because they don't want you to know what the actual numbers are. And I know why. Because logically, if you knew what the numbers were, you'd know what your chances were, and it would probably be less likely that you would compete. And those people that compete buy the volumes so that they know what they're trying to write to the market, right?
Yeah.
How many volumes of Writers in the Future have you bought?
Several. More than I could count them. It's not that hard, but I have several.
And yeah, and I'm not, this isn't to be derogatory towards Writers in the Future. What my opinion is on Writers in the Future is that it is a published market. It's a market to publishing. And that's it. And when you start seeing it as more important than publishing, period, I think you're wrong.
I agree.
So what I noticed was, I think, and you were in that lineup and I was in that lineup one of the times, when I counted up the names of people that got honorable mentions, silver honorable mentions, finalists, semi-finalists, and published finalists and finalists, and winners. And it was over 400. So over 400 people didn't get rejected, and this is not in one, but in like four different quarters. Now, I'm not going to say they're the same year because it might have changed the years when I was looking at it.
Yeah.
Like I might have looked at one outing in one blog post in 03 and one in 04. You know what I mean? But
right,
like counting them and seeing that big of a number, and seeing that you have to be one of 3 in 400 to be one of the winner or place.
right.
That's a pretty big number. And I have also seen people who, I'm not naming any names, but what I'm going to say is, I have also seen people who I have personally done critiques on their stories, and they were hard to get through. And those same stories with very little change, even though I offered hours and hours of explanation on why certain things needed to be changed, and they really did, placed higher than some stories that I knew were way better. I had one story beaten out by somebody who wrote a bad story. It wasn't good at all. It was cliche. And when it wasn't cliche, it was hard to read. And it skipped around and it didn't logically go from point to point. And then it was a dream. And like all the cliches were in it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it got a silver or an honorable mention or something like that. And I had a story that everybody that read it pretty much loved it. You know the story. And it didn't really get anything, and it was bought the next day for a professional rate.
Right.
So I can only explain that as either A, they are, I'm never going to achieve that market. I'm never going to write what they're looking for because of the type of fiction they want to produce or the audience that they're trying to cultivate, which I don't know what that audience would be, in all honesty, because I was reading more adult-themed stuff very young.
Okay.
So, and then the other thing that I did, the other numbers I crunched for that contest, were that of the people who won, of the people who placed first, second, or third in any given quarter,
Yeah.
less than 3% of them went on to have careers.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. Because
one or two of them notable, but notably stopped writing. Not naming any names.
Yeah, I think I've seen that. Like, because, there are all these winners and stuff. It's like, but how comes I can name a few, but I can't name a lot? And, yeah, I get that.
Right, and it's nothing against the contest, but the point is, I spent years trying to win that contest or even place.
Right.
And in less time than the quarters that I attempted, I was published elsewhere professionally.
Hey, I'm going to take a quick break because I got to see a man about a dog. I'll be right back in a minute.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Ron. Ron? Yes, sir. And stenciling.
And I'm back. Oh.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think Rise of the Future can be a useful thing. I think it can. It'll open doors. There's no doubt. I'm not saying it's going to open every door. I'm not saying it's the golden ticket, but I am saying it's definitely going to. It will open opportunities to you.
So I agree to a degree that, well, not even to a degree. I agree that in the attempt to writing for that contest and learning what you can do better,
yeah,
you will better yourself. You will better your skills. And that will make you more viable and more sellable. But
go ahead.
That doesn't guarantee that you're going to win because you write well. That's what I'm saying. No, well, that's what I want to clarify. Like, it absolutely does help you hone your skills. So, on that note, writing any short stories are going to help you hone your skills. They're going to help you trim out unnecessary words and unnecessary descriptions and all that.
Right.
Writers of the Future gives you regular deadlines too, and that's a great thing because I find I write better for a deadline than when I'm just writing for me. Because when I'm just writing for me, I can just kick off for a while.
Yeah. No, so, all that's good. I mean, again, I've been in the top 16.
I'm just agreeing with you, that's all.
That's fine. I mean, I've been in the top 16. I feel like I could crack it. It's just some of it, they've kind of clarified some of the unwritten rules a little bit better, I think, which is good. Like you commented the fact that I said the word hell in my story, but I don't think that would ever get me disqualified.
It's not, yeah. It's not because you said the word hell. It's because you're actually implying a real hell.
Oh, well, whatever. I don't think they'll have a problem. There's a thing in there about
maybe. Okay. Like I hope for you. You know, I'm rooting for you. I'm behind you.
That.
So I'm not wanting to see you not make it. It's just anything that you can do to make it better for you.
But
I'm not even qualified to tell you what that's going to guarantee to be because I'm not a winner there.
What? I'm just looking at something real fast. Oh, cool. Somebody who I critiqued got a silver honorable mention, and he mentioned me, and that's awesome.
That's great.
I'll take that. But anyways, no, I was looking up Martin Shoemaker had posted a thing. I keep forgetting to watch he did a podcast thing about this, and I really should watch that, but I've read the original. Huh?
Dictator?
Yeah. But he did a podcast on the unwritten rules, and yeah, I don't know, because he had this thing.
I did not see that.
No devotional or.
Send me the link on Discord or.
Okay.
Just so that I can pick it out because I have not seen it, and I've talked to Martin a few times because he's a superstar too.
Yeah. Yeah, but he has a thing that says no devotional. Yeah, no devotional or political content. It's fine if you have a point of view. contest isn't the business of promoting specific contemporary agendas. And I don't think mentioning hell is... It's not like I'm saying behave like this and to avoid hell, or these people deserve to go to hell, or anything like that. I'm saying...
Isn't it interesting that... Sorry, go ahead. I'll say that after.
No, I'm just saying I don't think I'm pushing much of a religious view. Put it that way.
No, I don't think so either. That's not what I was getting at. I was... No, whether you're trying to or not, somebody's going to take it whatever way they want to take it.
Oh, I know.
Isn't it interesting that in fantasy they stress so much that you have your character has a religion, but it can't be Christianity?
Well, that is an interesting... Yeah, I mean, I get it. Here's my thing, though.
I don't agree with it at all. That's like saying you can't do anything that could resemble Western, medieval, or Middle Ages or whatever. Really?
No.
Nobody else can think of a story like that just because somebody else has already thought of a story like that? Nah.
Yeah, I don't think that's quite how I take it. I mean, in fantasy, you're going to have your own religious system anyway, and if it's obviously based on Christian principles or Judeo-Christian principles, I don't see any problem with it. Not that I see any problem with any religion being the basis of a fake religion.
See, here's my thing: is why does it have to be a fake religion?
Well, it doesn't. I mean,
Jim Butcher writes in the real world, right?
Well,
he just has different fantastical elements in the current world.
And I think there are plenty of there are stories where they talk about religion. Religion's a factor, and I don't know. For me personally, I don't want to be heretical. I mean, that's what it really comes down to. I don't want to be misrepresenting anything of any religion if I'm going to start using it. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. Nope, I get it.
I mean, again, obviously, as a Christian, I really don't want to misrepresent what the Bible says, or confuse anyone, or act like I have special insights, because I don't. So I would stay away for those reasons. I mean, it's kind of like on the opposite end of the spectrum, the cursing issue. I generally don't include curses in my writing because, generally speaking, I don't think it's good. Not that I'm offended by it. I was teaching.
I hope not.
I'm not. But
because it'd be a little bit late for you to be offended by and being on this show.
Yeah. I was teaching Slaughterhouse 5, and like in chapter 2, he's dropping F-bombs. And I'm like, ugh. And I get why. It's actually a really good reason. Like, out of all the ways I've ever seen people curse in a story, I'm looking at this and I'm like, huh. Because the guy's being shot at and he's so tired, doesn't even realize it. It's not until someone says MF at him where all of a sudden he's like, oh, what, huh? And
it's English.
Yeah. Like, what'd you say to me? So, I get it works in ways that I don't think you can get with anything else, but still one of those things where I'm like, not exactly sure that was necessary, but
I am really, really fond of crossing genres.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that for other people is that I write history and I write fantasy and I try to cross them in such a way that's believable.
Yeah.
so you know the story that I'm writing right now. It's based on real history. Except for the fantastic element, obviously.
Right.
But they're Christian. You can hear it in their dialect, and their curses and their exclamations, or at least one character's. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, but I see all kinds of complaint about having it be a Christian society and a fantasy story. I don't think that there should be anything wrong with that. It, to me, it's no different than Lady Hawk, except for it has a better soundtrack. They have a priest in Lady Hawk, a bishop. It did not make that story any lesser of a fantasy or a good story. I think that to say you can't have a certain religion limits the imagination, and it's never something that's good. If you are Hindu and you want to use the Hindu religion because that's what you believe, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't.
I agree.
Maybe there's an exception with Islam because of their own rules about having representations of Muhammad or whatever.
Right.
And I could see that, but also that's them sticking by whatever their beliefs are. I don't think that should be held against any author or story. Seems like you want to say something.
No.
So basically, I guess what I'm saying is like, all right, so I'm not Catholic, and it's a for instance, but I've used it now in 2 stories at least that they are either Catholic or based on a Catholic belief system. I'm not saying anything against Catholics. I'm not really supporting necessarily Catholicism. I'm just saying that that's what these characters are. If we're asked to create them in a non-cardboard fashion so that they can be believable characters, then how can we limit them to what religions are acceptable or not?
Right.
And I think it's kind of really against the idea of writing speculative fiction anyway, because why couldn't you speculate within a number of different groups? You don't have to agree. The reader doesn't have to agree. Like, for instance, a good for instance is historical fiction lately has a bent that all of the all of the people either in the Crusades or the Viking Wars that didn't fought on the sides of Christians aren't Christian. They're really pagans and sticking it to the priest. Okay, if that's your belief, but really and honestly, you know damn well that wasn't the way it was.
You know, I just had a thought.
For it to be okay to use Christianity and Christians as bad guys, why would it not be okay to use them as good guys as well?
And I would argue that they do, just they don't necessarily call it out.
What?
There's, I would say that you have a lot of Christian protagonists, even if they don't necessarily make that a big issue.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that there's a bent right now. There's a trend in historical fiction to have all these guys that are fighting in the 100 Years' Wars or the Crusades or whatever, not actually be Christian. They have pagan gods that they're clinging to or whatever, but they're fighting for a Christian king, and it's like that's just it's just bullshit. At the time, I'm sure that there were. Don't get me wrong, but I'm equally sure that not every hero of the battles that they're having are all anti-Christian or just posing as Christian. You understand what I'm trying to say? Like, I'm not saying that there are no Christian heroes, but it's kind of like Republicans in comic books, right? And I'm not talking politics as far as getting into politics. I'm just saying that if you are a Republican in comic books and you don't say it, it's okay.
Right.
But if you say it, then it becomes an issue. That's what I'm talking about. Like, you may have protagonists that are Christian or based on Christian, but you're not going to see them very often in fantasy these days.
So, this isn't.
I'm not saying that I, want somebody else's version of what Christianity should be, but
I don't read a lot of historical fiction, okay? Because it's not my thing.
It's so close to fantasy, though.
I know, but I gotta preface this with it's my knowledge of it's very, very little, okay? So I want to keep that there. In case I'm asking something stupid, you can just be like, no, that's stupid. But do they have, like, this is part of my bias as an American, but do they have historical fiction that focuses on the British side of the American Revolution? Like the British are the British are the protagonists?
Yeah. Anything that's written by Bernard Cornwell, the British are protagonists. He's written a couple of them that are during the American Revolution. Most of them are not really set in the Americas. One of them is actually set in Maine during the American Revolution. Other ones are in the Civil War, but yeah, all of his fiction, all the good guys are the British.
That's interesting.
Most historical fiction you're going to find either British are the good guys, or it's about ancient Rome or something similar to that.
I'm saying, so this historical fiction where the British are the good guys, are the Americans the bad guys?
I have yet to read the 4, I think it is, and I I don't know.
I'm
Like,
just saying that.
I don't think that, like, it depends on who you're reading, but for the most part, like when I'm reading the British historical fiction, most of the time period that would be the Revolution era,
Yeah.
they're also dealing with Napoleon,
Yeah.
and that's the bigger conflict. So that's more of what's written about. I know, like I said, I know Bernard Cornwell wrote The Fort, I'm pretty sure it's called, and that takes place in Penobscot Bay, which is actually pretty much where I settled in Maine originally.
Ephraim's here, by the way. I just want to mention that. Ephraim,
Oh, cool.
hello.
Hello, Frank. So
I'm just saying.
also, Bernard Cornwell also wrote about the Civil War, where obviously they're siding with the South. And in his Sharps books, which are Napoleonic Wars books mostly, it's Redcoat's Napoleonic Wars, but there's an American or two, but they are, like I said, they are basically from the South and not necessarily in agreement with the way the United States is run. See what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like, I don't see them actually coming out and saying the Americans are bad guys.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think that's a different. And again, it could be because I'm an American and I get fed an American diet of yay America, but I mean Hollywood especially doesn't seem like it's all that interested in yay America. So
well, that depends. It depends on what you're referring to.
I'm just
the
saying.
Patriot was yay America and was actually presented the British in a bad light.
No,
when a lot of these British officers actually weren't in the light that Hollywood portrays them.
I know that. I mean, and I'm not. No, I think I'm saying the exact opposite. I'm saying you don't normally see the Americans as the enemy in any story set during the Revolutionary War.
Yeah, because you don't see very many of them told by the British. Like, the British also were dealing with Napoleon, and Napoleon was the bigger conflict, the bigger concern.
Right.
I understand what you're saying. So you don't have to repeat yourself. What I'm telling you is the reason that I don't think that there's a lot of fiction from the European, from the United Kingdom making the Americans bad guys is because they are more concerned with the bigger story. That was the smaller story.
Well, okay, but
I don't read a lot of stories making Australians the bad guys either when the Australians fought for their independence or tried to, So
I just think that
I think it's a colony thing that they, some of them still think we're going to come back to them.
Oh, I know, which is crazy.
So,
Yes, let us go back to a weaker nation. So, they abdicated their position to us, and we should not there's no one around for us to abdicate to, even with issues that I have with the government. I'm like, nope, still better. But, I think there's probably a market for something like that.
Well, I think right now everybody is trying to work towards this new world order, world peace. All countries are one. All people are one. There shouldn't be any borders, and everybody should be one. So I think they're actually trying to get away from that idea. I might be wrong, but most of the stuff that I see, like I don't see the British really bitter towards the United States very often, and if they are, they're just as bitter towards their own, for lack of a better term, right wingers. Anyone that's not, it's about making the world like one world or something. Like I don't think there's ever going to be world peace, but I think these people are convinced that if we all have the same rules, then it's going to be world peace. And then understand that once you have it set up like that, it's going to be the stronger dominating the weaker. It always is. It doesn't matter what your political system is. That's the way it ends up being. Do I agree with the ideology of it? Doesn't matter, does it? But I don't think that there's a huge market for that, because I don't think that they want to be divisive as far as world terms go. They want us to see how stubborn and divisive we are because we're not joining their way of thinking or their cause. You see what I'm saying? Maybe I'm beating around the bush.
Yeah,
I'm confusing it or something, but
I
don't think that's a really big thing for them. But if you look at the historical fiction markets, you have several different subsets. One is you're going to find ancient Rome, and Rome left ruins all over Britain. But Britain, the UK, however you want to look at it, however you want to say it, got their asses kicked by every nation that's ruled them. The Saxons kicked their ass. The Britons had their ass kicked by the Romans. So the Romans integrated some things into their society, and then you had the Saxons, and then you had the Vikings, and then you had the Saxons again, and then you had the Normans, which are basically Vikings that settled in France for generations. You see, so all that we understand about Britain from Dark Ages on up has been the impressions that other countries who kicked their ass left on them. So they have a very rich culture. We have some of that culture because we inherited and brought it over. But a lot of the places that immigrated with us, anything European, has basically put their foot up Britain's ass at one point or another. Like everyone, Spain, everyone. I mean, like they've been at war for a long, long time, and just recently, just in the second half of the 20th century, they started de-escalating. Actually, not even that, like just the very end of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer your question, Becca?
Well, I get why that they may be more interested in Napoleonic things, although I think there might be another alternative answer to that. But
well, they've been at war with France for, well, that was the 100 Years' War. 100 years, right?
Right. No,
they've been at war with France at one point or another for almost more than they haven't. But same thing with the Vikings, same thing with whatever. But I'm just saying that there's basically three subsets. One is naval fiction, which most naval fiction, historical fiction from the UK that I've read are either fighting the Napoleonic Wars or the Spanish Armada. And then Then there's the medieval times, which could be anything from the 100 Years' War, War of the Roses, all up through there. William the Conqueror, Viking Wars, just pretty much that era. And then way before that, where it was the Roman Empire. So you'll find a lot of Roman Empire stories in their historical fiction. What gets me is, in the United States, we have basically one guy that writes two guys that writes historical popular, but one that really writes historical fiction, and that's Jeff Shara, whose father, Michael Shara, wrote like the Killer Angels and the definitive Civil War books. And then the other one is just David McCullough, who writes real history, but he puts it in a way where it doesn't read bland. So it doesn't really read like a textbook. If you read David McCullough 1776, it's going to read more like it's a fiction book, except for it's omniscient and bounces around.
My mouse is dying on me. And I don't really like using my trackpad. Ugh.
Yeah, I don't either. I am not a fan of the trackpad either.
There we go. Replace the battery. Life is
that
good.
usually helps. In my experience, it does anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wasn't worried about it. I wasn't like, oh, God. But
I was trying to be facetious, even a little bit humorous.
yeah.
I fail at that quite a bit, but I try.
Well, I was thinking, you know your quorum story?
Yeah.
Well,
It's called Sentinel.
yeah, I know. I'm just that's the way I think of the world. Like that's what I remember more than anything else. Like, so that's the whole concept. But
yeah. The concept is that it was supposed to be the initial story in a group of stories that would have been about that quorum, but the quorum is a group of people, right?
Right.
Just for those people that don't know what a quorum is, it's enough people to cast a vote.
Right. So, not a problem with that or anything. I'm not criticizing that. I was just thinking about it.
I don't care.
And
pretty much get it the moment in there.
well, I don't want to sound prescriptive because I'm not trying to tell you what to do, and I'm not. I'm just saying this is the thought that popped in my head. That's it. About the British side of that type of story. I mean, it's just, you know, what you have is, I think it's an innovative idea and a neat concept, and I hope you do more with it. Okay, it's all good. But I'm also thinking, I've never seen, like, that is, I'd say, kind of like, well, I've seen other stories set in that time period, not that spin on it, like that's a different idea, but I've seen the American side. And then I was thinking, well, I haven't seen the British side of that.
How many stories have you seen from the American side? Other than a couple of movies.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, there's lots of different stuff. I mean,
like what? I mean, I'm asking because I haven't seen very much of it, so I am curious now.
Well, if it's specifically during the Revolution, I'm not so sure. But when we start, like, Orson Scott Card has Alvin Maker stories, which is set about a certain time.
But that's completely fantasy.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying I've seen stories with an American protagonist set in the American Revolution. Whether
That's
they're
actually
involved.
before the American Revolution, by the way.
Okay.
No, I'm just telling you because that's set when. Matter of fact, the third book they named that black kid after the king, and that's a poke at it because he's an escaped slave, and it's still the king's colonies or whatever.
I'm just saying, in general, that time period, you have. I think there are lots of different stories with American protagonists. And again, I enjoy American protagonists, especially as I'm an American. So there's nothing wrong with any of that. I'm simply saying, I don't think I've really seen the British side of that. And I think that'd be kind of interesting.
Okay.
It's at least an interesting thought experiment. Just to think about, it's a paradigm shift. I'd say that's a bigger paradigm shift than say, like Robert Jordan took the mentor archetype and made it female. Oh, look, that's interesting. Okay, whatever, sure, I guess.
I thought Robert Jordan, what the attraction of Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time was for me was not that. It was twofold. One, I felt Robert Jordan took Tolkien and slammed it together with Stephen King.
Okay.
Because you had your Trollocs and what makes the faceless afraid and the dark ones and all that. So I kind of got the feeling that he went darker than Tolkien, even though Tolkien had his edge of darkness too. I didn't feel like he had that horror element, but I felt that there was a little bit of a horror element with Robert Jordan's work.
I don't know. I just know I've read people talking about what Jordan that's one of the things.
All of the rulers of his lands, or almost all of them, are invariably female, though.
I know.
The twofold. The other part was that the men could use magic, but it made them crazy, and I love that idea because I've got this attraction to both madness and amnesia. Those are two elements that make me interested. Just hearing them made me interested. So
okay, I'm saying the.
Well, I was just saying too,
a British protagonist in North America around the time of the American Revolution, where the Americans are the bad guys, is not something I've seen, and would be it's a change. Like that might be something.
I don't think there'd be a huge audience for it over here. And
I don't know, because not to get too far into politics, I promise, but sometimes you see Hollywood's accused of having a generally anti-American sentiment, and
yeah, but they've got to be able to sell it, because if they're not going to make money off of it.
Oh, I agree. And
those people that have that anti-American sentiment have money, but they don't spend it on people who they want to have the anti-American sentiment either.
And I think that would be the challenge: is how do you make this a story that isn't going to piss off Americans?
Because you're not going to be able to do it with all the Americans being bad guys.
Well, I just think it would depend on. I don't know.
There might be a certain audience that are in college that like to throw cups of quick dry cement at people that might support that movie, but Probably not very many.
I think that's the challenge of it would be to how do you make the antagonist the American without it feeling like it's anti-American. And
I don't think you can. I don't think you can make. You're not talking about the antagonist. You're talking about the British be the good guys, which means that the Americans aren't. Which the irony to that is that at the time we were all British. We were just colonists.
yeah, I know. Well, it's an interesting.
I have, yeah, like, I guess I'm kind of in agreement with Bernard Cornwell when it comes to that. Like, I can see him making all of his protagonists British, or, yeah, I don't know what else to call it, because UK-ish doesn't make sense. Like, really, I mean, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but what do you call someone from the UK, right?
Yeah, I don't know. British.
Yeah, well, and if you call them British, then that's fine unless they're Scottish or Irish.
Right,
or
I know.
Whatever. Anyway, like,
You know, if they just simplify it
without
for
jumping
us,
into that too deeply,
if they could simplify the names of things, that'd be great.
yeah, right, well, that would defeat the purpose of divisiveness that is spreading. But, so, what I was saying is, Bernard Cornwell said that all of his protagonists were going to be British,
Right.
and that he would never write a book in which the British were the bad guys. So that's not to say that there weren't antagonists that are British, because if you read his books, there's nobody like even what you think of as the good guys have guys in there that are not so good, and
Right.
allies that are not really allies, they're antagonists or whatever. So basically the sentiment is that he won't write, his own countrymen as a bad guy, as the bad guys. Like, there can be bad guys of his countrymen, but they're not going to be the bad guy. So if you read his Sharps books for a while, there's a Sergeant Hankswell, and Sharp is a red coat that becomes a green coat, a rifleman, in the Napoleonic Wars. But Hankswell is an antagonist to him separate from the battle. And I really like the way he puts it, because even though he's representing, like, there are French that are bad guys, but not all the French are bad guys. You understand what I'm saying? In his story, like, the French troops are what they are, and they are in opposition, so they're antagonists, but they are not all villains. There are members among them that are villains, but there are members among his own that are villains too. So, I think I've told you this before. He said that in historical fiction, there's a big story and there's a little story. The big story is, say, the Battle of Poitiers, right?
Uh-huh.
The little story is one soldier's story throughout that battle. And his story is mostly going to involve his own people. Like, until he's actually in combat and actually fighting a literal physical opponent, his opponents are going to be among his own. And I've noticed that with Cornwell's stuff, which is one of the reasons that I like his stuff so much, is that he's got people that are on the same side in war, but that are judgmental of each other, and that are, you know, Hanksville wants to see Sharp whipped until his bones show through and dies or whatever. He hates the guy. But he hates the guy because he can't bring him down and stop him, you know. And then Sharp eventually rises through the ranks. Actually, technically, in the first books, he's already risen in the ranks, but you have to go back and find out how. But his opposition, his real, I mean, aside from a literal fighting force, his real opposition, his real character conflict comes from his sergeants and people that should be fighting on his side. And then not always, you know, just some of them. So you have he has to lead the scaling over a wall. It's called a forewarn. What the hell is it called? Forlorn hope. So it's called the Forlorn Hope because not many people are going to survive the original rush to scale the ladders going over a wall. You with me?
Yeah.
Okay, well, because you were quiet, so I didn't know if you were listening, not listening, there, not there.
I'm listening.
So his mission is to lead a death-defying raid where most people that lead that raid don't survive. And if they do, they generally get some type of promotion. This is not every story, it's just an example. But while he's setting up for it and everything else, this sergeant who's saving him is trying to make his life miserable, trying to get him killed, trying to get him beaten, trying to get him, you know, in trouble, whatever. So he's got the two different obstacles. One is a physical and one is a character obstacle. But the character obstacle is not the Tipu Sultan, you know what I mean? Even though they're fighting in India. The character obstacle is someone that he's supposed to be fighting alongside.
That makes sense.
So I like that element, and it is pretty common in historical fiction to do that, to have your hero basically have to overcome his own people as well as the enemy, as well as a dangerous situation, as well as his wife or whatever. That's interesting to me because it speaks to how people are people, whether or not they are of a certain country or whatever. Like, he transcends that because he approaches it on a level where it's just a person level. I should send you some of what I think is really good historical fiction. I love the Euclid books, but the first one wasn't the one that really sold me on it. I mean, it was okay because I read to the end. It has a little bit of a rough start, but one of the things that you find in historical fiction that you don't find in, for example, fantasy or whatever, is that they're explaining the milieu to you in a more, not really omniscient way, but a more omniscient way.
Yeah.
It's like it does have a narrator's voice to it, but it's also information that you really need to have to know what the danger is in this city or that city, and a quick explanation of the layouts of this city or that city. But yeah, I can send you some of the better stuff. I guess it depends on the era that you really like, whether you're going to be more interested or less interested in it. Like, for instance, you were talking about kind of Three Musketeer era.
Yeah.
And like, why is his name not coming? Alexander Dumas. It's not really easy to read. You know, maybe it's easier to read if you read French, but from what I've read in the translations, not really easy. So I looked for a more contemporary author, and there's I want to say David Ball wrote a big book called Ironbound about that time period. I think maybe even Richelieu makes an appearance in that story. Cornwall's got a lot of great stories, but you just got to push enough deeper into them. The later Euclid books, the later Last Kingdom books, they usually start off with some kind of conflict. And then there's some historical conflict that's going on as well. But it's very much like fantasy, except for that the milieu is a real milieu. It's just a matter of whether or not they explain it right for the period. Some guys are more about telling the story, which I agree with. It's about a story. It's fiction before history.
Yeah.
But a lot of them they're trying to make it more than right with the verisimilitude. And make it. I've heard people really get anal about when chocolate was released. The Secret of Chocolate was released from Switzerland or whatever, because one historical fiction writer wrote a queen was eating a piece of chocolate. Well, you think maybe you can accept that a queen might have gotten a taste of chocolate before anyone else? I could accept that, but certain people in that community can't. So,
okay.
I think Bernard Cornwell has said that He's gotten letters, angry letters over Flora. Like he said that he smelled a certain type of flower or something, and they were like, those flowers weren't introduced in that time period. Like, really? That drove you out of the book? That flower? That's got to be a rare percentage of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That are so knowledgeable about their horticulture that the smell of a flower would take them entirely out of a flower book. But all genres have that, you know. All genres have that snobbery, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
Where they expect certain things, and if certain things aren't done to their liking, they will complain. I don't know, like I don't think that I could read a story that put it would be really tough for me to read a story that put the Americans as the bad guy in the Revolution time. And I would give this caveat that they may not have been the good guys. You know what I mean? We fought for our own country, but we didn't fight against something unjust. We fought against taxes. It wasn't their unjustness that started the revolution. It was taxes, because we had been told that we weren't going to be taxed for our tea or whatever if we colonized, and they were taxing us on our tea to cover the 7 Years' War, which was the French and Indian War here.
Yeah, I know.
In which, yeah, well, viewers may not. Viewers may.
All right.
But, so, King George paid his troops to come fight for us in the French and Indian War. Of course, that's Napoleonic. That's an attack based on that same war. But he paid for that war, and he just wanted to make enough back on taxes to cover the cost. So we kind of we're all like, no, you said we don't have to pay. Yeah. And then we're like, you know, then there were other things that happened, of course. Boston Massacre and others. But that the Patriots actually misrepresents the character that they're trying to portray as Cavington. I don't remember his name. It does start with a P, but it's not Cavington. They misrepresent it, but they misrepresent it for grammatical purposes. It's just like Braveheart. There's no way that Braveheart could have impregnated the queen, or the future queen. Because the future queen was like 8 or 11 or something like that, and wasn't even in that country at that time. That was just Randall Wallace adding a little poetic justice to Braveheart's death. or King Arthur, the Jerry Bruckheimer one.
What?
So King Arthur, the Jerry Bruckheimer Antoine Fuqua album.
Okay.
That was historically inaccurate too. Even though it's argumentatively closer, or the argumentative closest rendition. But really, Arthur was the best they can figure, a composition of different characters. They just chose one. It's funny because people either really like that version or really hate that version. The British are are most incensed over that version.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a big division there on how accurate or inaccurate it is. So Bernard Cornwell also wrote a King Arthur version, a 3-book series. I sent the first 1 or 2 to Jake, but he refused to read them because he's writing something in that vein. Okay. But it's probably, I mean, the closest thing to fantasy he ever wrote, even though there's no actual magic or actual fantasy. It's just stuff that can be taken as. So they just started releasing it as a TV show, just like they did with the Last Kingdom. And Merlin's a black guy. I'm pretty sure that there weren't very many black guys that were esteemed in Britain as the Romans left. I'm pretty sure most people that were in Britain, unless they were Roman, probably didn't even know what a black person looked like. I don't even think the Moors had been to Britain. Of course, I'm not an expert on that subject, so this is all conjecture based on the common sense that I've acquired through reading and being a history idiot. But it's one of those politically correct things that if they're complaining about the Jerry Bruckheimer version being inaccurate to the period, to the whatever, maybe it's the Summation Knights being the Knights of the Round Table or whatever. How are they going to be accepting of Merlin being a black guy when, the best I can tell, there's several different possibilities for Merlin, but the most believable one that I've seen is a mad priest, a mad monk, which I don't think at the time was a black guy. That's pretty hard to swallow at that time. The only black guys I think they would have known at that time, discarding the fact that maybe the Roman Legion has seen more black people, or people of color, or whatever you want to call them, on the African borders. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in England, I don't think they would have. Not at that time. Like, it would be more believable to me in the Crusades, because the Crusades were versus Muslims, and Muslims in North Africa. Some of them were, a lot of them were, they called them Moors, right?
Yeah.
The Moors. So, not being derogatory when I say this. It's being, I just don't get how they're going to be really, really picky about flowers or some such like that, and okay with race swapping somebody of such importance in the tale.
Well, it is kind of strange that, that was never, because I just saw something where, I forget, it was something, I forget the story, I just saw something about it, but the some actress was going to play some role from set like in a Viking area, and
Right.
she was going to be, and she's black.
No, you.
And they're like, well, there were black people everywhere. And I'm like, okay.
Not really. Not really.
And I know, I'm like,
There were
No,
more
it's
Chinese people everywhere than black people everywhere.
yeah. I mean, just this idea that they were super common and everybody knew somebody. I'm like, I don't think that's accurate.
Yeah, I think I call bullshit on that.
There's a reason why, you had various places. I don't know. I find it hard to believe, especially when like, they have no problem saying things like, there were African people who had never seen someone who was white. So, but all Europeans had known a whole bunch of, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, okay, if you say so, but it doesn't quite seem to gel with me. But
Yeah, because it's not believable at all when you look at it reasonably. And that's what I was saying with the common sense based on what you know. That's like I've seen people say that there are no Middle Easterners that are white. Like, I can show you a bunch of Israeli people that are white.
yeah,
I can show you in Israel right now
yeah.
photos of people that were taken in Israel right now that are white. So that it's crap, it's just crap. I don't understand the need to take something that already has a history, facts, historical record, and try to manipulate it.
Well, I think it was
For a fictional reality that isn't going to last past a year. Nobody's going to give a shit next year what they filmed last year. Look at how they're failing, so why would you do that?
Well, that YouTuber, Just Some Guy that I told you about a while ago, I'm pretty sure he had the argument of, if all you're going to do is race swap, so you're saying that whatever the new race is, are you saying they couldn't have their own stories? Like, you got to
Right,
have your own?
Exactly my meaning. Exactly. That
like, you're demeaning the race that you put in for whatever the other race was. So,
yeah, why make a black guy Merlin? I guarantee that there are legends, that there are African myths and legends that you could play off of.
Yeah.
Not even just the African. I mean, again, that's a misnomer. Everybody thinks that they're African American because if they're black, they must be from Africa.
Right.
But a lot of them were islanders. A lot of them, like, they're Caribbean, South Pacific islanders. They all have stories. People, not they as in another race, because we're all the same race. But people all have stories.
Yeah.
Why not explore their stories? You think that, if you're sick of hearing The Little Mermaid told about a little white girl, instead of trying to tell it about a little black girl, find a similar story that's an actual story, you know what I mean? Or an actual mythology or whatever from those people, and represent their people, because that's what they want, right? It's representation that everybody's complaining about. Well, show me some representation of what they believe. Don't show me representation of how they can destroy what somebody else believes. I see that all over the place, and that's an interesting point too that maybe not everybody has picked up on, but the chipping of statues, the destroying of monuments, it goes back thousands and thousands of years. It's not new, right?
Right.
So what they're doing really is this is the same thing. It's destroying the monuments that were built by the country that gave them the most freedom. Matter of fact, the freedom to destroy those monuments and to express that. Right?
Yeah.
So what I don't get is why don't you build instead of destroy? That's the thing that stops me in my tracks, that traps me, that keeps me from being behind this stuff, is that nobody wants to build. They just want to destroy what's already been built. And there's no particular reason, there's no real gain from it. So why? That's the thing. Why? Explain that to me. Not you, but anyone that wants to pursue that. Why? Why would you do that? Why is it important to destroy something? Unless you're conquering something, right? Because all those people that are knocking over monuments and all that stuff, they're basically destroying what was there before because they have conquered, even temporarily, they have conquered it, right? Am I looking at it wrong, or is that inaccurate?
I don't know. I mean, sometimes, I don't know. It's an issue that's pretty complex. So I don't know.
Maybe I'm not seeing the complexity. Maybe I just see the surface. I'd be fully willing to admit it if somebody could show me some complexity.
Well, I just don't want to get into the politics of it. Especially when
it's very difficult to avoid politics, but we are anyone that's watching or has been watching or whatever knows that we're not trying to talk politics. We're just trying to talk situation.
Right.
It's
No,
not
it's
about
one of those things where,
political belief. It's about situation, truths,
right,
speaking truth.
okay. So, no, I'm not even going to say that. Nope. I might message you later. Yeah, because I don't want to. There's more to it. I mean, I think I'm not saying you're wrong that the conquering people destroyed the monuments.
Yeah, that's what it's about. It's conquering, destroying, proving that you are now in control, which is what conquering is, right?
Right, and
conquering doesn't have to be killing people; it has to be taking control.
Right. I'm not. You're right.
Well, I'm just saying that I'm not. I'm distinguishing it. I am just so as not to have words put in my mouth later, and not by you. By whoever wants to try to put words in my mouth.
I know it's. This is on YouTube. You don't. Whatever. I get it. And that's. It's a. I mean, I don't know. We'll just leave it there. We'll call it good. Put a lid on it. Oh. That was really articulate.
At the beginning of this, I thought, how could we possibly get into politics if we just avoid talking about the modern hot subject?
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about fiction and entertainment and
yeah,
it's a hot subject, doesn't it? I guess.
Well, it's one of those
really
things
hard.
where it's kind of hard to avoid the politics because you have people trying to infuse the whole thing with politics.
Yeah, because politics are in everything. They put them in everything. It's like when I was discussing religion versus science to somebody, and I was saying that science isn't just science. I think science is a combination of three different elements. One of them is scientific theory, which is religion. It's religion. It's expected to be believed. You know what I mean? Without any proof. That's theory. They call it a theory, and they're allowed to change their religious beliefs because they've never proved them in the first place, and they call it a theory. And then there's observable science, which is basically you're observing something and then giving it a name. And then there's mathematical science. So when you take the scientific theory out, which people are preaching, they are basically expecting you to believe it, and they're giving kids in schools tests on scientific theory and evolution and all this. So they're expecting it to be generally accepted as truth, but there's no more proof than there is that God said, "Let there be light," right? So I think, like, when I brought that up, they're like, "Oh no, you're." They walked it back, and they're making it try to sound like I was making something untrue, but it's definitely true. The Big Bang Theory is just that, a theory, right? Because there's Christian scientists also that say, well, that's the spot God said, "Let there be light." That doesn't change the fact that we're expected to believe or to pass tests in school based on the knowledge that is all supposition, that has no evidence of it,
Right. Or there's limited evidence.
But that's religion. No, I mean, there's no more evidence. I don't see any more evidence of evolution, for instance, than anything that is mentioned in the Bible. Like,
Well,
there may be a different interpretation of that evidence, but there is plenty of historical evidence that the naked archaeologist did a good job of that. He went around searching for evidence of the biblical record, like physical evidence of the biblical record. He found quite a bit that proved that, like for instance, that proved that there was a ruler in ancient Egypt that wasn't an Egyptian.
Yeah.
And he had the governorship or power, and he had a particular ring made that said that it was a Hyksos, which means foreigner. And I found that interesting, basically because that's what he was doing, is saying that this can be open to a lot of interpretation. And just because science, which archaeology is a science, right, ostensibly.
Yeah.
Says that this exists, it doesn't necessarily explain why it exists. That is a matter of belief. And belief is just as much a religion if it's expected for you to believe it without evidence as a religion is if it's expected to be believed without evidence, right?
Right.
And that was what my comment was. But boy, the attacks. Oh no, because how do you explain math and how do you explain? No, dude. Math is completely different. It's called a science, but it's not all science. So if I lump physical discoveries in with the Bible, does that automatically make them religious? Because I can prove there was a Tower of Babel, say, you know what I mean? How does that make that automatically one thing or another? But yeah, politics. It's lumping shit in together that doesn't necessarily belong together. It's like the circular reasoning behind the aging of dinosaur bones. You know how they get the ages of dinosaur bones?
How?
Well, there's two ways that I've heard of. One of them is by how deep they find them.
Right. Because you have the geological layers.
Right, and that is circular reasoning, because it presumes that just because you found something on a certain layer, that means it's a Jurassic layer. So it's not because there's any direct evidence of that being a specifically Jurassic layer. It's but because you found other things that you're calling Jurassic in that layer. So everything that you're going to find in that layer is going to be Jurassic. But we bury people 6 foot under. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it.
Who's to say that the ancients didn't bury some people in different stages and levels and all that? So, you know, it's just saying there's possibilities. Another thing is carbon dating. Carbon dating is also flawed because it's based on the supposition that we've reached a level that there is no more carbon entering the atmosphere than is exiting it. So we've reached a level that's level, and that's where we can date it, because we can say there's X amount of carbon in there, and you know what I mean. But the problem is that since 1978, we've been detecting more and more levels of carbon in, so that is inaccurate, and it can't be accurate. And they've proven it themselves when they when they take a hot dog and date it at 10,000 years old. That's John Ostermeyer, right? Like how is Ostermeyer putting that 10,000 year old hot dog? So yeah, it's flawed. I'm not saying that there may not be some truth to the depth that you find in having relationships to other things at that depth, but it's not a guarantee.
Right. It's
And
correlation.
To expect us to formulate knowledge based on that as a guarantee is flawed. It's a flawed way of thinking, a flawed representation. Boy.
Rich, I'm gonna have to go.
Oh, sure. All right, man.
Sorry, man, but I'll talk to you later.
All right.
Okay.
God bless.
God bless, man.
Just when I get to the mask. Oh yeah. It wasn't very long. Starts getting rubbery really fast. Yeah, so you just peeled a whole bunch up. And take it tomorrow. It's harsh on breath is why my deep breath is. This stuff does not smell good, so anyone that hasn't used it and you're trying to, you want to keep it ventilated. Understand that you can use a couple of coats. I'm guessing that you have to be more patient than me and let it dry before you run over it. I'm just trying to match it all up. I also don't know how long it takes for it to dry. I don't know. You might be able to see. I'm yellowing as it dries. So it's going to be one coat and then get the fan. I've got a little fan going on here. It's not like paint. It's not like you can just lay down a coat and spread it to the line if you want to get it to and lift it. I always suggest using or trying as many methods as you can. This one is a method that Joe Justo uses. I don't know if I'm using it right because I never watched him apply it. He usually shows in stages what it is. And he's very generous with his knowledge. So he hasn't like recorded a process video. And honestly, that's probably what I'd use, watching his process videos. I've heard mixed reviews on this, but I've also heard that it takes a little bit of getting used to. And I think one decision that I made that was wise was to buy some cheap brushes. I think something I noticed that I didn't notice before that I'll share is when you open this, it's almost sealed across the top. I don't know if it's because of the shelf life or what, but if you break past that or mix it up a little bit or whatever, it gets thinner and more melted. I'm going to guess, because of the nature of it. It's a more liquid version of it that you use. No longer will stay manipulable. Now you won't. I'm guessing what I'm seeing what I'm working this time. I have used this once before. I have very little knowledge of it. I wasn't as patient as I am now. I know it sounds like I'm joking, but I'm not. Oh, if anyone was wondering why I didn't say I was going to paint today, and my focus was going to be what I'm doing right now, just because definitely have to have more patience. Joe Duffo said sometimes he does a couple of coats. He's probably asking how long it normally takes or how long he normally lets it sit before he starts painting the background. But I think I'm going to let this set over a couple of days. So I want to make sure exactly what I want. Covers exactly what I want covering. This may take some Exacto knife care. It takes some daylight because it's dark here. So I'll see a little better how I feel in a minute. Yeah, this stuff definitely needs brushes. Good thing I bought some cheap ones. That gets attributed to Joe because I wasn't even thinking about it. Yeah, I bought some cheap ones. I was going about it and doing it the way I was already doing it. It's not for that very bright secret. Ah, okay, that one's gone. One down. Fortunately, we got about a whole pack of them. Boy. And we're out of the way from there. Smells like cat urine. No. I'm not supposed to blend with the pencil. That's not what it's supposed to do. see. Ooh. Now, I've been pre-running on this. Keep dry rather quick. My main concern is covering her and the axe edges so that I can get a background. Gone through one brush already. And partial. So basically, just kind of give it a rubber coating. Probably on tomorrow on the off day when I'm not actually working on it. Probably gonna give it another coat. At least anywhere I've curved it. So I've discovered that the pencil that I'm using, which is a Noir pencil with black red, mixes with this if you're not careful. This is why I'm doing a lot of dabbing. And this compound will be very rubbery when it's done, but I'm pretty sure it creates like a latex coating that you can peel up by parter and fold. But it basically masks it like masking tape to protect whatever area you're particular on protecting. For me, what I'm trying to do this time, as opposed to the last couple of times, is trying to coat this complete area so that I can just paint the background, top and bottom. Without care to all the small stuff. Trying to eliminate the detail or the concern about the detail. But you let this stuff dry for even a second, it becomes kind of gummy. You just stick to stuff you don't necessarily want it to stick to. Now the cool little thing about it is it'll peel right back up if you want it to. Which I don't. Maybe I'll spot it too, but for the most part I want to be able to set it and forget it and maybe do a second coat tomorrow if everything is dry. I'll get a bigger brush for that next time. I wanted to get disposable brushes. That was the key this time. I wanted something that you don't have to worry about wrecking because this masking fluid really goes through the washer. I don't want to have that as a concern. At least one of the brushes I'm paying $15 or better for. You pay $1.50 for this entire pack, so yeah. Here's the way to go about it. See, I'm probably going to do breakfast because this one probably isn't going to last much longer either. The first one, once I dry it, or once I wipe it, just pull it right out of the plastic barrel. No surprise, it's 2 brushes. You expect it to have that much grip that soon. was a kid. So as promised, that is the first stage. So you apply the stencil with some, I think I may be able to see a little bit. So I'm going to apply the stencil, which is basically, I drew the picture and then I got it enlarged, which was not an easy task. It should have been an easy task. And tonight, so I took the enlarged version, stenciled, set it to where I wanted it in the painting, then stenciled it. I've got to come up with a thing or two to put at the bottom, so I want to stop you from just running out of it. Maybe I'll put some rocks into here. Kind of like the idea of having a theme of something that interconnects them. So maybe another rock that will have something carved in it. But there's a big sky plans for this one, just mostly color stuff. What I want to be able to do without worrying about all this stuff and touching it up to it. So that's what I'm using masking fluid for. You can see it's peeled up a little bit and balled up a little bit. So I coated over it so that in the end I'm going to peel that stuff up. I'm going to peel it back layer by layer because as I work on the sky, then I'm going to work on the next part over here. And work from the sky up. So I guess that's my normal. This is 3 hours, so there we go. 3 hours to mask it. Well, I guess it wasn't mostly masking it, everything was just prepped. But the masking took a chunk of it, so it's stencil. So thank you to everybody who watched. Thank you to everybody that watched this whole time. Hit like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications so you know I'm streaming again. Especially if you like the content. And I'm going to call it. Good night. God bless. Love you all.